in the middle, which is random people talking about some random model that's just going to, again, become highly commoditized. You have to remember, all these models are open sourced and none of them mean anything in the absence of the data you give it to train on.
100%. Brad, hey, okay, Ed. Yeah.
Well, I want to add one other piece of news that we saw this week, which is OpenAI announced that its developer AI, they were cutting the tax on that, or basically the metered rate they charge to use it, by 90%. So I think this is going to be a game changer. I think this is based on the ChatGPT 3.5 API. And of course, they're coming out with 4.0 later this year. I've already had...
Explain to the audience what an API is and why this is important for those people who don't know.
This application programming interface, it allows a developer of some other application to build on top of you. So in other words, like a developer wouldn't have to use this chat interface to get access to the large language model. You could just submit your request through the API. And so...
Give an example of like a popular app and how they might use the ChatGPT API.
So I think like Notion actually had a demo that they published where it was a pretty incredible demo. Maybe we can find it. And it would do things. They added actions in the demo, like generate a task list. So you could take like a document or a meeting summary and would spit out recommendations for next steps or tasks. It could, spit out a table. Basically, it's the autocomplete for everything that we talked about, right? So now Notion doesn't need to build their own LLM expertise. They just use the API.
So when the Notion app, you say, hey, I'm building a marketing plan. And you say, well, okay, give me a list of things that should be on my marketing plan for my new app. It sends a signal to the ChatGPT API, which will be on Azure, Microsoft's platform, and then it gives you the data back. You don't have to build the language model.
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful.
Notion has all the content that they need, but they don't have the AI expertise. So now they don't have to generate or create AI expertise in-house. They just use the API. It's really powerful. And but just to finish the thought here, I think that one of the things that's probably misleading about these stats around funding and that there's like almost 600 startups already that are AI startups is that, what happens when there's a new wave is that founders are smart, right? And they know how to market themselves in the way that is most compelling to VCs. And they know that like VCs, frankly, are a little bit lemming-like in terms of their migration to the next wave and wanting to glom on to the next big wave. So VCs are now looking for AI. If you're a founder and you build one feature on top of the, OpenAI API, now all of a sudden you're going to market yourself as an AI company. You're not going to market yourself as just a SaaS company.
And so that's valid. Yeah. I mean, it could be gamed or it could be like a great pivot,
Yeah. And it's not totally one or the other. I mean, it's just that if you have a plausible connection to AI as a founder, you're going to start marketing yourself as an AI company. And so that's how all of a sudden you can have 600 of these companies, that are all of a sudden out there in the wake of this sort of ChatGPT, is I think a lot of companies are recategorizing themselves.
I literally had this experience not 3 weeks ago, right before I went to Japan. Serial founder and team that we've backed before that had an exit said, can I show you something? I said, yeah, got on the Zoom, showed me a little proof of concept using ChatGPT. And he said, this is my idea. This is the vertical. And I just said, okay, what do you want? He said, $500K for 10%. I said, okay, done. Great. Let's learn. And it's an easy bet for us to make because we know it's a serial team.
For OpenAI, the way that it could become a $1 trillion company is actually by cutting the cost to such a low degree that nobody else can effectively compete with it. And then at that point, they can become a small tax. You'd rather just pay it than try to compete with it. And I think for OpenAI, that's actually a very brilliant strategy. So that's how they could get to become very, very large in valuation, would be to become so pervasively relied upon, and where they take such a minuscule take rate of their participation in you building a company, that could be really effective for them.
Like cloud computing, right? Like we're going to just take such a small tax. Yeah.
No, that's not a small tax. That's a large tax.
That's the picks and shovels play in a way to create the developer ecosystem for AI. And Jamal, to your point, I mean, I think you raise a good point that, what was their motivation to take such a dilutive round? The 10 billion at, what was the valuation at 30?
30, yeah.
Yeah. And does that imply that they're not confident? I mean, the flip side of it could be maybe they know they want to compete on the basis of rapidly, becoming the developer platform. And so they're going to subsidize that developer platform, with negative gross margins for some period of time And maybe that's why they need a lot of capital.
And they were in kind of a reflexive loop of just cost of getting better versus the amount of money they had to get better. And so maybe they were forced to do it. And then in that point, how would you justify it? You would say, well, the other 50% is still hugely valuable, so that's enough for us. And I think that's very logical as well.
Brad, you have your finger on the pulse of LPs, limited partners who back funds like Chamath's, Sachs's, mine, and yours. We heard 6.5% on your money for no risk. Well, and Chamath's position is, hey, you have to triple that if you want to be a private market investor. That's about 20%. 20%, rule of 72. That means every 3.5 years, you got to double. If you're doing that for a 10-year fund, you're looking at a 5x fund is kind of table stakes then, I think, just back of the envelope math. What are LPs thinking right now? Are they looking at this world and saying, I should just be all in cash? Or are they saying, yeah, everybody thinks we should all be in cash. Therefore, there's not going to be enough money in private. Therefore, there's an opportunity there. We know the 6.5% rate, that's not going to be here forever. It may be here for a little while, but we need to keep investing in venture. Or are they just cutthroat about it? Like, let's pause venture investing, private market investing.
It's a great question. First, when I look at the 3-year Treasury bill, it's like 4.7. Not to quibble here. So I think Chamath's getting a little goosey on his 6.5. But the fact of the matter is, these
what does that mean? Goosey. What does that mean?
You get a little
like
extra
goosey,
because
excited.
You're super special. You're VIP, JP.
Oh.
Maybe it was like some sort of like bond rate that included corporates or something. Maybe it was.
I'm getting like 5.2 from Robinhood on my Robinhood account for J trading. So it's right.
What is in that? What is in that, Jason? They probably got it in some junk bonds and they're ripping you off.
Whatever it is, I'm getting 5 points. It sounds pretty good to me.
Until you're not. You are until you're not.
It's a 100% T-bill parentheses and junk bond fund. Look at the fine print, Jacob.
LPs have a 10-year view. They understand, like most people. I mean, listen, if you look out at the 10-year, the reason the 10-year is, that we have real interest rates at about 1.5%. So that's the 10-year less expected inflation when you look out, is because people expect inflation to come down and they expect rates to come down. So if you were an LP and you said, I'm not going to invest in venture in the next 2 vintages, which may be the best 2 vintages we've seen in a long time because prices are adjusting, et cetera, and I'm going to move it all into some rate bet. First, it's just very difficult to do. They don't move their allocations around that quickly. Now, a wealthy family as an LP could move their allocations around really quickly. But if you're Texas or you're Ohio or you're a sovereign wealth fund, you're betting on the arc of value creation. I would say this, the consequence is they're narrowing their aperture as to the venture funds they want to allocate capital to.
Okay, explain that. Unpack who they're narrowing